Check 1 2 mic check. We are live in 3 2 1. Let's go. Yo, what up everybody? My name is Jeremy. This is Break Free Worldwide Podcast, episode number 2. Our guest today, Marlon HaviKORO. Everyone make some noise. Our longtime friend, my teacher, one of my biggest teachers.
What up, what up, what up?
Awesome artist. He's here in the building with us today. How you feeling?
I feel good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm super, I feel really good.
My name is Jeremy. This is Break Free Worldwide.
You sound and look good and smell good.
You know, I'm trying.
What's up, Moy? How you feeling?
I feel good, man. Just excited to hear what's going on in the life of Marley the creative. You know what I mean? I see you got a lot going on, so want to tell the world what's happening in the world of Marlon.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to start. So if you're tuning in and you're in this culture, breaking, you probably know Marlon from, over the years making a name for himself, battling, HaviKORO crew. How many years have you been dancing? Let everyone know.
Oh, shoot. I think going on
about the calculator.
21, 22, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started, what year was that?
I think 97.
Oh, look at me.
So whatever he did, minus 2. Or plus 2.
That's
plus
pretty close. So
yeah. So
I started in 95. You started in 97.
Yeah, like 97.
Yeah,
97.
And now, we can go back in detail dancing, but I first wanted to address and talk about things that you're doing now and up to date and what Marlon's going over now. So, people who do know you also know that you're a poet, and they know that you're a successful poet, published author. Shout out to Cheers to the Notion of Love, Hate, God, and Revolution. Q the writer. This is his published book. My man is a published author.
Yeah.
If they can cop this, or if somebody wants to buy this, where can they go?
You can go everywhere, man. I would suggest you go to marlonpoetry.org.
And we'll throw up the link after.
Yeah. Definitely, and a percentage of that always goes back to my programming. And so, man, I decided a while back. I really took advantage of traveling and dancing, just like for all of us three right now. It opened up the world for us, right? And so one of the things that I did as we traveled, I took it all in, and I decided to write about it, and I decided to kind of just start writing these short stories and really value the storytelling aspect of my life and what we were doing. And one thing that I realized through this dance, that even though we were all like these young kids from these at-risk neighborhoods, I realized that, damn, we have a story to tell, man. I mean, like if all these people are drawn to us just from dancing, imagine if we were able to tell a story, and imagine if we can tell a poem, and it was just that simple idea, and I just kept writing. I didn't think anything of it. I think little by little, I just started sharing more of how I thought and how I saw things, and it took off from there, man. I just loved writing so much.
So when did you release this book?
I released this book it's like 5 years ago. This book actually took me.
It's been 5 years already.
Yeah, this book took me 10 years to write. Talk about procrastinating. But it took me so long to write this book, simply because it was the journey was so great, and I didn't want it to end.
Yeah.
And the reason I came out with this book, even though it was after 10 years, the reason I came out with it pretty fast in my mind, because one of my really good friends, Jasmine Mendez, who's an amazing writer and poet, she just came out with her book, and I was like, I'm thinking of putting out my book. And her response to me was, do it already. and it was just that easy.
You need people to tell you that.
Yeah, and I was just like, why not do it? You're right. Yeah. Why not? Why have I, and I literally, I put it together, man. And literally it was that easy. Why not? Why not?
Well, I guess whenever you're doing a project like that and you're doing something that's not only great for the community to get a hold of, but you're feeling something yourself, something that you're going through. So, whether it took you 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the time is always right, because you put it out with within your own time and what you were going through and what you were dealing with, and essentially that's what this book is probably about, right? A lot, your life and
This
in short stories.
You're right. This book is literally dedicated to me as a young immigrant kid. That's it. I honestly, man, if I was 14 years old again, this book would have inspired me.
That's awesome.
And that's I mean, like, man, I have students, I have so many people that I've inspired and things like that, but at the end of the day, like, I really try to capture like what would be something that would have just blew my mind back in the day.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
a lot of people watching are obviously dancers. A question I wanted to ask is, you being diverse and being more than just a dancer and diving into writing and publishing a book, how did your experience from dancing translate into you writing? And do you think you'd be able to write this book if you didn't start dancing? And if you weren't a b-boy, how did that translate and how did those skills cross over?
Man, the funniest thing about breaking always it brings out who you are, and like your style is always like who you really are inside. I always feel like I think like Moy's not like a very talkative, loud person, but like his style is so explosive and like, you know what I mean? Like it's just that kind. Like me on the other hand,
Action, baby.
Like it's like go. Like my style, like in dance, was basically, you can tell I was going through some stuff as a young kid, right? And like so.
You can tell by the way you were dressing.
When I discovered battling, like, wait, I can talk trash? Like, I can come at someone? And it was like, it was insane to me, like, the idea of, like, you can release this kind of stress and like, the things that we were going through. Like, people were actually, like, releasing it all on the floor. And what dance did for me and how it translated is it just gave me that confidence to be like, even though I'm not the best dancer in the world, I'm still going to represent.
Yeah. And I think too, like, as you grow, like, even your personality and style changes or matures, because we all start at a very immature level, but you know, whether it's fashion, whether it's your charisma or character kind of pouring out to dance floor, it's always changing. And so, all of us three can kind of contest to the fact that a lot of people always are telling us, yo, how come you don't do the things that you did 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Because you're doing it.
Well, not only besides that, I mean,
I got homies carrying on the legacy.
We're maturing, we're changing, we're always trying to reinvent ourselves, and so I think that's always been a cool part about you too. Is that like, even though a lot of people still want to see you compete at the highest levels, which we all think that you could, it's just like right now you got your poetry going, you got other programs going, which we wanted to get into as well. I know we wanted to ask about is it the ICONCLAST?
ICONCLAST artist.
ICONCLAST artist. I know you got a lot going on with that, and just, man, tell us everything, man. Tell us everything, because and we'll keep coming back and forth breaking. So if you guys are tuning in, watching it, this is Marlon HaviKORO, legendary b-boy but artist from Houston, Texas, and sharing his story, sharing his thoughts, and we're gonna be going back and forth between breaking, his artistry, and so forth. So
man, I think just to go on the road of like how breaking translated to like my art now, like breaking really gave me that confidence to be myself and to like understand that like people are gonna love you no matter what, and you're always gonna have a fan base. Like someone's gonna dig you, and this is the coolest thing about breaking, that it's we are not polished. I mean, there's like a lot of people that are not. Like, it's so funny because one of the first videos I watched was B-Boy Summit 3, and in B-Boy Summit 3 there's Easy Rock, and then there's Remind, right? And these are. And these,
wait, are you gonna start something controversial?
No. I'm
just joking.
Go ahead.
And it's Easy Rock is so well polished. Like it's just like I don't see like
versus Remind is more chaotic.
And Remind is more like I mean, his style is on the floor, and he's like, that's the guy you don't want to let him borrow sneakers because he's gonna jack them up. You know what I mean? Because he's just gonna go all over the floor. But I was more attracted to that. And this is the cool part about the dance scene, that is just there's so many people to choose from that that's what speaks to your art. You know what I mean? It's like Basquiat. Someone can look at Basquiat and be like, yo, that's garbage. What are you talking about? Why am I gonna pay thousands of dollars for this? This is garbage. But then there's someone's gonna be like, oh my gosh, I cannot live without this. And I think that's what breaking did for me. It really opened up my eyes to, like, there's gonna be people that are gonna appreciate you. You know? So.
Yep.
So going into your ICONCLAST program, it's essentially an initiative for youth to teach them poetry and to kind of get that style out, the style that you spoke about, something that's living inside of them, something that they have to say, tell their story. It's a program that goes into schools, goes into other programs and teaches them poetry through you and other instructors in Houston, right?
Yeah, well, it started as that. So when I was into, I've always been into like social work, and I've always been into working with youth in some level. And one thing that I did once I got to a point where I was like, okay, I love traveling, but I got to do something here now. And I think it was roughly around the time when like Break Free was just getting up too, and I was like, you know, it's just being inspired by our bravery and our audacity, right? And this is one thing that I love about us, is that we have the audacity to do, right? And one of the things that I wanted to do in Houston was like, I wanted to create something, but I don't want it to be dance based, you know. I want it to be writing based. I want it to be storytelling based. One of my first mentors, and I know he was a big influence in you guys, Charles Rotramo. Basically, I called him and I was like, hey, listen, I need an old abandoned building in downtown, and I'm gonna create an artistic expression, like super dope underground creative writing program. And then he goes, that's stupid. He goes, that's the stupidest idea ever. No one's gonna go to it. And I'm like, damn, okay. He goes, listen, I know someone who's just as crazy as you. I'm gonna introduce you to this guy, and he introduced me to this dude. We go to lunch to a Mexican restaurant, and I told him about the idea of having a high-level creative writing program that was for free, that it only went to underserved schools and it went to lockdown facilities. And he was like, let's do it.
Lockdown facilities, you mean like?
Youth that are incarcerated. So working with...
so like juvenile detention centers.
Juvenile detention. And look, statistically speaking, Texas is crazy. Like, Texas, you can get locked up as young as 10 years old. You know, like the school to prison pipeline and things like that. Like, these things would always bother me. And the reason why it would bother me so much, that every time I would go do a school function or a class or a workshop, I would see it because it's in your face. You know, and it's like it's almost like this system that they don't even try to hide. You know, and these kids all know it, the teachers all know it, the schools all know it, the community knows it, but no one's doing anything about it. You know, and so I was like, what if we were disrupted, like in an impactful way of like, hey, listen, we're gonna teach you how to express yourself.
Yeah.
And the way I feel is like once you teach someone to find themselves, to find their voice, to find who they are, you can't control them. You can't push them around. You can't bully them. I mean, like, ain't no Crips recruiting at no poetry readings. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna have that. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking for myself now.
Yeah.
And I think you can have a good, healthy balance of it. Like, we're not teaching kids to rebel, but we're teaching kids to, like, listen, there's this thing called perspective, and everyone has that.
So
freedom based.
So going in and creating these programs, whether they're after school or at community centers or juvenile detention centers, what's the response like? How are people accepting it from facility or staff managers to the students actually participating in the class?
Well, in the beginning it was just me, and so I went into two schools, which is they're huge schools here, which is Sharpstown High School and Wisdom High School now. And I went and talked to the principals, and I told them about this program, and I was blessed that they let me pilot it. And I mean, the response was amazing. And I told them that it was not an after school program, that it had to be during school, and it had to matter. and you're talking about a lot of schools in HISD that there is no such thing as arts.
Yeah.
You know, because little by little, that's always the first thing to go. When there's no budget, the arts department is always the first to go. So I got a class, and I remember it was a 9th grade class, and I went in there, I did my thing, I introduced writers that they should be reading, I introduced artists, just everything that inspired me at the time, I was introducing to these students. And I got such a great response from them that the next year I was able to keep the same kids. And I tripled on my classes. We went to 8 schools. And then that year was a really big year for us, the second year, because that's when we came out with our first anthology.
Cool. Which I got right here.
Yes,
right.
That's the first one. That's right. And shout out to Mario from HaviKORO crew, man. He did the cover.
Title, They Say.
You got to use your people, man. You got to use your people.
So this is basically an anthology of your students' work.
Yes, of my students' work.
That's
And every poet in there that you see without a last name is incarcerated.
Wow.
So that's how powerful these, like, so when I go and I teach these classes and I hang out with these kids and they, once they finally realize, man, like people are actually reading this, or like I can't believe that somebody cares about what I have to say.
Yeah.
You know, once they accept that, once they're like, yo, I want to be a writer, I want to tell my story, they're not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you say right now a little while ago that you said you went to the schools and you had to say, hey, I wanted to do a program that matters. Now, are any of these programs like official, like electives or a class that kids are getting credit for?
Yes.
That goes towards them graduating?
Yes, a lot. So a lot of these programs piggyback off other programs, but one of the things that I am proudest of is we made it a part of the English classes. Right, so it becomes an actual, it becomes a class that actually matters, man.
So hold it right there, just so everybody watching, like, I mean, just that alone is really next level, because I think that B-boys and B-girls, and I want to say B-boys and B-girls because that's the background we all come from. That's kind of the stepping stone, the platform that we use to create more. And just hearing you, because I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that. So learning more about it just right now doing the interview is pretty amazing. That, you know, when people think that we can't create nothing, Marlon is implementing programs, creative writing programs that essentially it really is an element of hip hop, right? MCing, spoken word, and into schools that are going towards, you know, graduating credits. I mean, that's pretty amazing, man. Yeah,
and you know what? It just organically happened. It's not like I had like this master plan. The only thing that I knew that I wanted to do is I wanted to teach at a high level. I wanted to impact and empower, and at the end of the day, I wanted to challenge a system that everybody thinks is untouchable, or that it's already set, or, you know, a lot of our parents, you know, they're either intimidated or they feel that they can't challenge a system, or they feel like they feel trapped by their situation themselves. You know, I mean, we have a lot of kids, even right now, that their parents, the best they can wish for them is, I hope you have a job and be able to pay your bills, mijo. And that can't be the best that we want for our kids. You know, I've had young girls in my classes, they're like, oh, my mom just wants me to get married. And I'm like, it's 2018. Yeah. Why are you talking like that? You know, and it blows my mind.
That's like the artist's journey, right? Like an artist has no ceiling as to what they can do, both in an artistic way, but also in a financial way, like a business way. You know, like if an artist is successful, like the definition of a successful artist, and you look at that, like that's somebody who has created something for themselves, that's doing something that they love, and they've been able to make really good finances off of that to provide for whatever families they have for themselves. And I think that's, you know, arts education is something that we do here, of course, too. And you've done your fair share of work of teaching breakin too. So I think that's a huge theme and something that's really important, and it's really important for people to promote that support that within our scene, our hip hop scene, and specifically our breaking scene, because we get so caught up in the competitive age, and you're a prime example of you came in, like, you made your name for yourself. You're a legend. Everyone knows Marlon and what you did for the battlefield and your influence amongst that. And then once that happened, you went out and you provide for your family. You have two beautiful kids.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That you provide for. You have a house that you paid for off of your work that you do, and that's something to look up to and to promote throughout the community as an example.
I think there's a big accountability aspect of what we do, and I think if you're mature enough, and I think if you've grown in a certain thing, I think you start searching for something else, and you start evolving, right? It's hard for me to think about, it's scary for me to think about right now, like, especially looking at these big competitions, like, I gotta win this comp or else I can't pay my bills. Yeah, man. That's scary. That like, back in the day,
it's safe to say, like, advice to people out there, if you're thinking that, like, don't do that, man.
It wasn't as scary back in the day, but like now it's kind of scary. So it's just like, I think if everyone can stop and kind of like think about and dissect what have they learned and what are they really truly good at, right? And teaching is always a great tool. Now, I'm not saying everyone should be a teacher, because not everyone's a good teacher.
Of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think that
there's a way to get involved.
There's a way to get involved, and there's a way for you to create. Just like in dance, there's always going to be a way for you to create. There's nothing wrong with working for somebody that is creating, all right, and helping them create. As long as you keep evolving, and that's how I feel. Like I feel that like now, I would rather lend the culture my voice than my dance.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what I bring to the table now.
Yeah.
Right, and whether you agree with my ideas, whether you don't, whether you think that my relevance only is based on my dance, then that's not a culture.
But they can still see you on the dance floor.
But they can still see me. I mean, they can see me outside. No, but that's what I'm saying. It's about evolving, and like I feel like I keep evolving because I keep getting inspired. Right? Because if there was no breaking for me, there would have never been no Diggable Planets.
Yeah.
And if there was no Diggable Planets, there would have never been no Saul Williams. And if there was no Saul Williams, then there would have never been Federico Lorca. And so it's like
Drake. Drake come into play?
Between Diggable Planets and Saul Williams. But it's almost like but it's almost like,
I know your influences, dog. Come on.
But it's almost like in a way, it's like hip hop kept me educated, because you would always hear that one track, and you would go talk to these DJs, sometimes they were cool, sometimes they were not, but you would always talk to these guys that are just so well versed in what they do, and they're masters of what they do. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you don't have a master's degree, you can be mastered at what you do.
Yeah.
And people put too much clout in these papers that say, congratulations, you're a master of something. Mm-hmm. But you can also be a master of something by living that experience.
Now let's go back, because I like what you just said there, and let's go back to the B-boy level. Like competitions, someone wins a major competitions, and all of a sudden they're a master of something. They win a title, and then they're the master of something. Yeah. Which is something that a lot of people get lost in. They labels or titles. Which. Essentially, cool, they hold some weight, but at the end of the day, you got to go above and beyond and keep learning and keep being a student beyond a title, beyond what a win or whatever it is, and I think that the reason why I wanted to mention it, I think a lot of B-boys and B-girls are watching these major competitions, and then they see somebody win, and all of a sudden, these guys are the best in the world, but there's so many people that are just as good, if not better. Yeah. They just didn't have the platform.
You shouldn't worry about the next person, the next B-boy's success, or make that either credit you or devalue you,
I tell you what, there was this one time I went to New York, and I went to New York, and it was in mid 2000s or something. And this was when I was like really at the top of my game, where
Was
it's
I
like
with you,
I was.
or I wasn't with you?
I don't.
Is this a stabbing story?
I was at the top of my game as far as like battling and all that. I went to a club, and there was a cipher in this club, and this club had Brian Green, it had Ejo, it had all these legendary house dancers, right? And I remember the first time in my life as a dancer, I was hoping, I hope one of these guys never calls me out. Because these guys are such artists and so beautiful to look at.
They're so free that there's no
And
way
they're
you could
just
beat
so
them.
free. They don't care about what you're thinking. They don't care about it's just that relationship between them and the floor. And I was so humbled by that, because at that time I was always on that wolf mentality of like, yo, I'm trying to destroy anyone that comes in my way. And I see these dancers just coexisting and just flowing like water. And I was like, wow, I was jealous of that. I was so jealous, and at that time I wasn't finding that. I wasn't finding that cipher in the places that I was going to.
Yeah.
And so I was so humbled, because I was like, damn, I wish breaking was like that.
Yeah.
And I said that, and I was like, yo, I wish breaking was like that. And I told Brian Green that, and if you don't know who Brian Green is, I mean, just look him up and watch him. And I remember I was like, yo, I wish breaking was like that. And he just smirked, man. And then he was like, and he just kept dancing. And I think as far as culture goes and what we're trying to build, it's really worth asking the question. And I know a lot of people get mad, but it's like, the question is, do we have an actual culture? Or are we pushing spectacle so much that that's the only thing we value? Because at the end of the day, if you are not seen for a year or two, you're irrelevant.
I think that has a lot to do with just modern days and social media, like social media plays a lot into it. But specifically, I like what you said about the culture and spectacle thing. And I wanted to ask you, you seeing the 90s, you seeing the 2000s, you seeing nowadays, what is the biggest difference? A lot of people talk about how it's golden age, even within hip hop and rap. But from your experience as a b-boy, as an artist, as a writer, you living through all that, and specifically within breaking, what do you think is the difference between then and now?
I tell you what I love about now, the inclusivity. I love the inclusivity, and I love that there's 7-year-old kids just killing it all over the place, and there's kids flying all over the world now, and I love that. What I don't like about now is the lack of. We've gone so far, but we have yet to learn how to value people. Look at the biggest search, like the biggest controversy is like judging systems. There's people actually like fighting about like, yo, my judging system is correct, and like, meanwhile, like, yo, we should be educating. Like, we should be focusing more on culture. We should be focusing more on how we are being represented. And like, to me, it's just like, I honestly don't care about judging systems, simply because we're so artistic based that it's perspective anyways. Yeah. If I feel you, I feel you, and if I don't feel you, I don't feel you. And I think we're in such a huge platform now of like inclusivity in education, and so many people are doing so many amazing things, but there's no one really connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody really creating this kind of history, or there's no historians to what we're doing, because if there are historians, they're usually angry older dudes that are demanding to be respected. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about creating something that is our own, and we can tell this story, because we should be able to tell this story. If we're waiting for some marketing scheme to tell this story, they're not going to tell that story. You know what I mean?
I definitely, I don't mean to cut you off, but I definitely agree with just kind of more educational components. That's, that's what we focus a lot on Break Free, and especially with even what you're doing. I mean, education is everything.
Yeah.
You're just teaching what you know, and that's the good part about it, is that you're not just trying to just share things you don't know. These are real life experiences, and I think that's where it matters the most, when people can relate to something real life, or something literally something they've been through, and then piggybacking on like OGs, like feeling like they're owed something,
Yeah.
I see a lot of OGs kind of just popping up because they feel like these competitions are big and the opportunity exists, and so they feel like they deserve to be judging. Let's look past that. Like they can come in and be like, look, I don't need to judge. Let me teach a workshop.
Exactly,
let me have a panel give me an hour or 2 hours.
Judging should not be the ultimate show of respect.
Yeah,
for like
I feel like judging has become the ultimate level of respect for people that are either OGs or want to feel like they've earned their way in the scene as a veteran. Like judging is the ultimate, and it's not. There's so many different ways you can contribute, so I'm glad you brought that up, man, because that's important.
And the thing about our community, even like a worldwide community, I think we're all connected in such a way that we can create this.
Yeah.
We can have a b-boying museum.
For real.
Like real talk. Like literally, we know all the players. We know where.
Rainbow tank top.
We know where to get all the information. We know where to get all the stories. We have the people that tell these stories. We have the artists. We have every aspect of what we would need to actually make this journey actually more cultural. But it's almost like we're waiting for someone to step up and do it, or I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. But I wish
other things, man.
I really wish that a part of these spectacles was really a kind of traveling experience that really and I am talking about the black and white pictures. I am talking about the Rocksteady crew footage. I am talking about the European movements. I'm talking about all of that. How many of these kids don't know 90s crews? How many of these kids don't know like these pioneers, these people, and it's almost like until we start pushing that, until we start like really saying, look, this is where we came from, and this is why we are the way we are now. I think it gives us more substance, and it makes our culture much richer. Like it makes our culture much richer. I mean, there is no downside to that. And all of a sudden, we have a much bigger voice in how we get represented.
Yeah.
And it can be done. I mean, like, take capoeira, for example. I mean, I love capoeira, and I admire capoeira because there's actual masters in capoeira.
Yeah.
You can't do capoeira for 1 year and be like, hey, I'm gonna lead a group. Heck no, you can't do it. You can't do it, and it's the same roots. I mean, capoeira is created by slaves. So if a culture, if you're gonna tell me that capoeira is not culture, that's insane. So that's the way I feel about breaking. That's the way I feel about hip hop. That we can collectively say, hey, listen, I know we're not all gonna agree on what is 100% hip hop fresh, but we can all agree that Rocksteady happened. We can all agree that Style Elements happened. We can all agree that Diggable Planets happened. We can all agree that Rakim happened. And the real guys, the real MCs are connected to breaking. They are connected to DJing. They are connected to graffiti. And so I think we have enough substance, but it's really about connecting those dots, and I think that's my biggest gripe, that I don't see any advancement towards that.
Yeah.
Because I think the easy opportunity sometimes is to be a part of something that can be very spectacle based, where you're like, okay, I can do this for pro bono or free, or I might never get paid out of this, or I can go this way and focus on this.
So that inclusivity that you talked about sometimes can come back and be bad and have a negative aspect.
Well, it is. I mean, how many young kids are actually doing break-in, and do they know where these moves come from? And I'm not the biggest foundation person ever, but
You got a nice six step.
I have come to respect our movement, that like I feel complete as a dancer because I know where a lot of these things came from.
You grew up, you grew up watching the tapes. You grew up studying and researching about it, which I feel like a lot of young B-boys and B-girls don't do today. They just kind of see something on YouTube and they get inspired, which is great. That's why we think YouTube is such a great platform. But at the same time, you can get so caught up in it that you forget to do a little extra research and look up the guys that were behind the movement and started the movement. But I have a personal question right now which kind of just came to my mind. You know, you're writing now, you're doing these creative writing programs, your poetry. I know you got a theater show right now that you're doing as well. We'll get into that a little bit later. But like, you got all these projects happening, and I think people have personally come up to me before and asked me like, you know, hey man, where's Marlon? He's still dancing, he's still doing this. I'm like, yeah, he's still dancing, you know, but he got a family, he has his programs happening. But do you think that somewhere down the line, because where breaking has been going has also kind of pulled you away, not pulled you away, but just kind of, you started doing these other things to kind of have a balance? Because I feel personally sometimes with breaking, it gives me a hip hop headache, man. It just like, it's just too much. So I feel like I have to do other things. And so, you know, that's why Break Free is such a great, it's a great project that keeps me sane, you know, because it's beyond breaking. You know, there's a lot of things that we do with it, but it pulls me away from breaking. I don't want to talk about breaking 100% of my life. No. You know, I know how much impact it does to people, but could you say, I mean, that's part of the reason that you do
I have a love-hate thing with breaking. Dude, I go like 6 months loving to practice. Yeah. Like, I love to practice. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just want to practice all the time. And then I'll go
practice.
We talk about practice. And then I'll go through a stretch where I'm just like, I'm all right. And there's jams that come up where I'm just like, I'm all right. But then there's small jams that I'll go and represent the crap out of, right? Like that.
You're going off a feeling.
Because I go off a feeling. Like now, like there's no, and I think the balance part it plays the biggest part in my breaking now, because my relationship with breaking, I control it now. Because before then, I felt that my identity.
You had to try to prove that you were the best.
My identity was.
But it's a maturity thing too. You know, as you get older, you start to make better decisions, or at least we think we're making better decisions, right?
Well, the environment, I think also, man, I think there was a point where every time we would break, like people would bring up a camera, and like, so you like, oh, I can't just regular vibe, I gotta go all out, you know. And I think little things like that like really would bug me, because this square boxes, man, it's just like but I think that's why we can coexist, because we're so strong at what we do, and we respect each other just enough to let each other do it, and know enough not to.
I think somewhere down the line, the history of HaviKORO, I think everybody has almost fought everybody.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, till this day.
Yeah. Till this day. I think so.
So for everybody watching, a lot of people think that
your cruise will be all right. Yeah, your cruise will be all right.
That things are pretty and things are going good, man, but we know all y'all crews have these same problems.
We see you.
We know, you know. And I remember growing up like with you, especially kind of, you know, mid to late 90s, and you were at my house all the time. I think everybody at one point was at my house.
That was my
I've
getaway.
literally seen you catch ringworms. Almost fight somebody. Us fight each other.
I caught ringworms from a dirty. I caught ringworms from a dirty carpet.
So easily, man.
I caught ringworms from a dirty carpet. Let's put that out there.
A dirty what?
A dirty carpet.
Oh, carpet.
Wait, whose dirty carpet was this?
This guy.
I had nowhere else to practice.
We had to pitch in for a vacuum cleaner.
What about Palmer's staph infection?
Oh my goodness.
That was a little bit later. That was early 2000s.
But you know the cool thing about that is just we created such a brotherhood of like
dirtiness.
But
an infection.
I think there's such a support, and I actually implemented this part of breaking into my programming, where it's like I feel that if you get a group of students together, the only way that they are going to succeed is if you create a foundation of support
Yeah.
out of that group.
That brotherhood mentality.
That brotherhood mentality, right? Like that. I can't be brave in front of the whole world, but I know in front of these 20 people, I can be brave.
Yeah.
And I literally took that from HaviKORO and from my experiences with HaviKORO, where I put that in the classroom. And I this is one of the things that I do is I tell them, it's like, guys, we're going to become our own support system.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to read poetry in front of each other, and we are going to support each other. We are going to love each other.
Mm-hmm.
An idea like that in a real world, which is to me, which is a horrible thing to say, that I can't believe it works. But it's in the real world, we don't work like that. We don't say I love you so easily, or there's a distrust, or there's a mask that we wear. And so once I teach my students that if we want to be successful, we have to do it together, and we have to support each other.
Yeah.
And if only one of us comes out as successful, then we all succeed.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the one thing that I have borrowed from my experience with HaviKORO, where you can literally, some people shot up faster than others.
Yeah.
But I remember being a fan. Right? I remember being a fan. I think Moy was the first one to ever get sponsored. And I remember being hyped. Because if this was sponsored, then we're all sponsored.
Wait. Whoa, wait a minute, buddy.
I was hyped because literally when Moy got,
Where you going with this?
And when Moy got sponsored, and it was dope because when Moy got sponsored by Tribal, the whole squad had Tribal.
Tribal?
You remember that? And it was, I mean, but that's almost like that's almost, it was unsaid, you know what I mean? Like everyone, and I think there's this lack of fandomship that is going on. That's not a real word, by the way. I'm a writer.
I like it though.
I'm a writer. There's such a lack of fans, like true fans, like true. And I'm not talking about like, oh my God, he's so cute fans. I'm talking about
I personally always say it's important to be a fan of breaking. It's important to be a fan of
just
people.
Have a genuine love.
Yeah, you have to, because
Dude,
if not, it'll get boring.
I mean,
Or you'll be filled with disdain and anger and bitterness towards.
That's why sports keep growing so much. You know, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, it's because they're the fans. You know, so
the nostalgia aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think once you get too cool for school, you know what I mean? Like once you get too cool for school, like you can't. Then what are you doing? Like you shouldn't even be here. You know, you shouldn't be here if you're way too cool for school. Like if you're not. If funk is on, if there's ciphers, if there's DJs going all out, and you're just like, oh, I'm too cool for this. Really? You should not be here. You should not be here. I don't care who you are. It's just, you have to have some sort of like connection to what's going on. And I to be honest with you, man, to this day, when Remind goes to the floor, I am the first person to go see him. Because he's one of the main reasons I dance. Storm. He's one of the main reasons I dance. Both those guys are, you know, and so even
a lot of people.
Crumbs. I mean, I don't care if you might not be the greatest person, but I am not ever going to take away your influence, you know, or your work that you put into this culture, you know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times nowadays, you know, guys that have contributed, you know, whether it's 5 years ago or 30 years ago, they feel like, you know, like their influence isn't real anymore. Like the influence is always there.
Yeah.
I could name a list of people I'm influenced by, and that's never going to change. Those will always be my influences. Yeah. But today's main influence is what I can contribute to the scene. Because I know I can't compete forever, but I know that I can always contribute something, you know. Yeah. So with that being said, man, I know you got, you know, we talked about your books, we talked about your writing class, and now you're bringing something else to the scene. You're this theater show. Yes. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I have a show called My Spanglish Hip Hop Story, and man, I'm so proud of this. Like I'm so proud of this. You know, it's just like back in the day, like I remember getting windmills, and I was like, Oh, like that kind of proud. I'm proud of this because I'm able to creatively bring in my grandmother's story, my mother's story, my stepfather's story, and my story all together in a one-man show, right? And it's an hour and a half. And I know that sounds like a very long time, but you would not feel like it's an hour and a half. And it's music, and it's poetry, and it's multimedia, and it's storytelling, and it's dance, and it's comedy, and it's deep. It's gonna make you cry, but it's gonna make you laugh out loud. And this is basically all of my work all into one show, right? All of my experiences into one show. And I am a big fan of theater. I am a big fan of comedy. I am a big fan of acting. And so from the beginning, I just feel that everything led to this show. And when I started writing this show, it was just so organic for me. Like, it just felt so natural to write this show. And I really feel that I am accountable for my own family's history. Like, who's gonna tell that story?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about writing. It's just like, if I don't say this story, then the world would never know who my grandmother was.
Yeah.
Right? And they would never know what my mother's sacrifice was. And they would never know that my stepfather was deported. Mm-hmm. Right? And why is this hip hop? And someone just asked me that on a tour, and they were like, so explain what my Spanglish hip hop story is. And I told them, and they were like, okay, how's the first half hip hop? And I was like, well, hip hop is about foundation. And there would be no foundation without my grandmother, without my mother, and without all these experiences that I went through. That is a big part of my foundation. You know what I mean? Poverty becomes a part of your foundation. Struggle becomes a part of your foundation. And the one thing that hip hop has in common is that everyone gets to speak about their struggle.
And that's one thing that, just recently hearing, a lot of your work, and even recently at IBE, we're at IBE, and you got to share some of it there, and seeing you do it, made me realize that, like, there's a lot of people that complain about, I grew up like this, or I grew up like that, but you really, shifted that focus and made it something good. I don't mean to put you on the spot, man, but do you have something that you can drop, like, for people? I mean, I think people want to hear it, man. A lot of people don't know. So if you have something,
you would come.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, the mic's right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let me. Yeah. So, okay.
Let's go. Hey, you need some monster?
Yeah. So, I think. So when it comes, so let me break this down real quick. When I came to the U.S., I was 9 years old. I didn't speak any English. I didn't speak a word of English. As a matter of fact, my introduction to a lot of my talks are always like, my mom is from El Salvador, my dad's from Puerto Rico, I came to Texas to become a Mexican. That's a horrible joke, by the way, but I love that joke because
you do stand-up comedy too.
Hey, that's my next thing. Right. But I love that. I love that joke because it really encompasses kind of like communication.
Identity.
My communication.
It's true, though. Anybody that moves to Texas becomes Mexican.
and so communication was hard, man. It was really hard for me. As a matter of fact, I developed a little stutter because I was trying to learn English, and my Spanish was not like the way everyone else was speaking Spanish, and so when I started speaking English, it was hard. It was hard. And people downplay. That's why the immigrant story for me is so romantic. Because the sacrifice that someone does to come to another country and really adapt the way that they do, to me is just like, it's so beautiful, and it's beyond beautiful. And like, so when I write, I really try to give you an image of why I write. One of the first poems I did it's a simple poem, but it is really why I write, and so it's called I Write. So I write because of the moon. I write because the Most High lets ideas attack me daily, because MCs want to move the crowd, but I want to move mountains. I write because I was never taught to, but I learned to read in spite of him, and always for her. I write because I never knew my father. I barely know my mother, and my grandmother died. I write for a version of a second-hand story passed down to me through drunk tongues. I write to make you uncomfortable, to remind you that you do not know me. I write for love. I write for the idea of love. I write for the idea of love that I will give my life for. Injustices with baby fingers. I write to gain courage for them, sanity for me, and to always keep her wooed. I write because paper is a sacrifice, to not let the trees die in vain. I write, ultimately, to be free. And so, and so that's how I started. I wanted to paint these images of, like, I don't want to go over your head. I want you to understand what I'm saying. I want you to really understand what I'm saying. So a line like, I write because I never knew my father, I barely know my mother, and my grandmother died, like, that line for me is so personal. And when I say that line in front of students, you can see their eyes go up, because that's their line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to connect with you, right? You're supposed to see art, and it's supposed to move you in one way or another. And it's supposed to challenge you, and it's supposed to make you bitter and jaded and jealous, right? Like, there's been a few times where I've seen dancers, like, do moves where I'm just like, why didn't I think of that? like, right? Or like, it was at the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
And or I'll see artists just create such amazing work where I'm in awe of it.
Well, it's like, Jeremy says a lot too. I use this a lot. I quote him, but he always says that, like, dancers need to feel more pain when they dance. They need to feel more anger, more joy, more excitement, more of these and things. And the reason why you didn't create it, because they were feeling it at the time.
I agree. Exactly. I agree. I think you have to, there has to be some sort of sanity for you in finishing whatever you're trying to finish, right? Like, there's a sense of accomplishment. Like, someone said that there's never really a finished poem. There's just poems that you walk away from and come back to. Mm-hmm. I love that because you can always keep adding to poetry and stories and everything. And then it's like that with everything. I think if you're a true artist, you're never going to be content with, like, my masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's always changing. It's always evolving. Why didn't I? And it's details. It's the little details. Like, I've changed certain details about a poem that changes the entire poem. Mm-hmm. By changing just words from the poem, and it brings everything together. But I remember going from being an angry kid, hating his environment, and being angry because why do I have this shitty life, to going to a person that says, well, let me paint this picture instead, and let's connect that way. And it's really helped me grow as not only a person but as an artist. And I feel that introduced integrity in my life, and it's allowed me to say no to certain things that before I didn't think I was strong enough to say no to. And now I can say no to a lot of things, and now I can be like, no, I'll be all right. And before I felt like I was trapped by these choices that I had made and this identity that I created, and all of a sudden it's like, yo, this is who you are. You have to be this all the time. Mm-hmm. No, I don't. Yeah. No, I don't. I'm going to try a bunch of things. And I tell people all the time, try everything. Try singing. Try sculpting. Try painting. Try poetry. Try writing. Try everything. Be bad at a lot of things before you find yourself. Be bad at a lot of things. Be bad. And how many people are brave enough to be bad at things? And that's why I love the scene now, because there's so much inclusivity that it allows these kids that have no idea what we're doing to get in a space that they should not be in, but they still have that audacity. And we have to applaud that audacity. Yep. And I think that is the bravery that we're creating now, that we're inspiring kids on such a level that they're like, I want to be you so bad that I don't care, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm gonna do it anyways.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's like a love and hate too. Let's go back to the big competitions. There's like a love and hate thing with these big competitions because there's these super long prelim process, like pre-selection rounds that you have to go through, and you know the top dude, especially if the prize money is good, the top dudes are there from all over the world. But then you got like the guys who just started. And you know, you hear some of the pros, and then they're talking about like, man, these guys should not enter. Like they're just making this extremely long, you know.
Yeah.
But then again, there's that good part about it where it's the inclusivity where everyone has the same shot, you know.
What a highlight though.
Yeah.
Like, man, I got served up by Wing. I got served up by Moy. That's a highlight. I think we've been in this game so long that we focus so much on wins or it was a bust, you know, in a sense, where we forget what it's like to actually put in a really good round and feel really good, or try something that you've been practicing for so long and it worked out. That's what these kids are doing, and in to be honest with you, I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of three.
We didn't have that.
I'm jealous of three guys who know, man, there's no way we're gonna beat these Jinjo crew. But one of them does really dope, and they all go crazy for him. That right there, to me, is more special than Jinjo doing their perfectly timed everything. Because that's raw. Because that's what we're all here. That's the reason why we're all here.
Yeah.
Like that moment right there, and I catch people all the time. I catch the really good people all the time. They smile when they see that.
Yeah.
I smile when I see that. Like when you see that raw, like I hit that. You know what I mean? Like to me, like yo.
And that's
love
the fan in you.
That's the fan in me, and that's the 15-year-old kid in me, right?
Because
that's
sometimes
the carpet session.
Sometimes
in me,
I'm sure we can all attest to this too. It's like we compete and we're like, why do we compete? But then once we're out or whatever, like we sit back and just kind of just watch the show and enjoy it, you know. And then you can really truly enjoy it, unless we're just pissed off and we just leave because we lost. But you know how it goes.
The jam sucks, man. All right, see y'all next year.
Yeah, exactly.
You know the craziest part is I 3 years ago I kind of made a promise to myself: if I know that I'm not gonna have a good time, I'm not gonna go, and I don't care where it is, right? And I started taking advantage of all the places that we go to, and I was like, man, I gotta get out. I gotta stop going straight to breakin', and I gotta go see wherever city we're at.
Yeah.
You know, I started doing that a whole lot more, and I realized that, man, every trip was a good trip. Yeah, every trip was a really good trip, and I love that about what we do is that we have that ability to go explore and go get lost somewhere.
Yeah.
Even if it's for an hour or two, and then meet back and be like, yo, where'd you go? I started going to museums. Imagine if we would have went to every museum of every place that we would be the most cultured people in the world. Because
how many countries have you been to?
I have been over 40, I think. I've been to a lot of different places. And it blows my mind. You know, and in the beginning, we were just so happy to be there that we really didn't do much in these places.
Yeah.
And so as you get older, you just start taking advantage of it. And I just started taking, like I'm going to Tokyo in December. Yo, I'm so hyped. And a big part of it why I'm hyped is because the jam's only one day. And I'm going to be there for 4 days by myself. I'm going to go get lost.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get
lost. When you go, because I know all.
Oh, you know how to spot. I know it.
How many times you been to Japan, boy?
I've been to Japan 23, 24 times.
Oh my Lanta. I've been to Japan 3 times. But that's so fresh though. But it's just like now, I think because it was just such a blessing that I think sometimes that it was hard for us to realize, like, yo, we're here.
Well, I think that's a big problem with B-boys and B-girls nowadays, and maybe even since back then, is just that we just get so caught up, and like I'm a victim of this too. I think I'm growing more and more out of this as I get older, and I think it has to do with maturity too, but we just get so caught up in like what you can call the Joneses and what's nowadays and what's trending, and trying to be relevant and fit an image of something perceived through somebody else's eyes rather than what's felt through yourself. So I mean, me as a student of HaviKORO and being a student of both of you guys, I've learned that from y'all by example and by y'all just straight up telling me that, like, and I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear. And I have to remind myself, I'm still young. I catch myself, getting caught up in wanting to win. Like there's a difference between wanting to win and wanting to win so bad that it drowns you and it drowns yourself and you become somebody that you're not. And I think a lot of b-boys go through that nowadays, was tied in with social media and the current climate of the scene and everything.
And I think that's why they don't win though, because they're too focused on something. But when they're just going up there, I think organically the win will come just by you just being you. And I think when people are putting too much focus on that, it's hard to get that, because you're really, really struggling to get it. Yeah. But when you just go out there and just do work, I think the W is like right in front of your eyes.
I tell people all the time, the only reason you know me is not from wins, because I don't have any huge wins.
I don't think you've ever won any competition ever.
I've never won anything. I think I won at Uno once. But you know me from moments that I've created. And that is more valuable than wins when it comes to the journey part of it.
Yeah, it's like you said.
I've been in some like super historic moments and super historic battles that like I can't honestly tell you if I won that jam or not, but I can tell you I went after Kimmel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I can tell you that I stood up in front of Rocksteady and did my thing.
Yeah.
Then I could tell you I went to New York when everybody was against me and trying to stab me, But we're cool now, New York. We're cool. But in reality, it's just these moments that's why you know me, and that's why you know HaviKORO, because HaviKORO hasn't won anything. We won here and there.
You've won more.
We have peppered wins, but in reality, it's like really HaviKORO, because we've always been in these moments that stand out.
We're the best second place crew.
I have never heard anyone's like, yo man, I know you from that one time you won that. No, I know you from that one time you got called out in front of me. Like, yo, like really all these memories of people that come at me, it's really about memories. And now it's so much more of a blessing, because even that's evolving, because I have people coming up to me, it's like, yo, I know you from your poetry. I know you from that freestyle session video that you did the poem for, or I know you from Mex's poem that you dedicated. And it's just like, how dope is that? How dope is it? Someone, a kid told me, is like, he goes, man, I love Ivan. And I'm like, yeah, I love Ivan too. He goes, yeah, he's the best host ever. And I'm like, and I was like, oh, he's also like the best b-boy ever. And he goes, he's a b-boy? And I'm like, are you serious right now? And yes, and it's like a part of me was upset, but a part of me is like, how dope is Ivan?
By the way, Ivan, we won our $45 back.
Yes, but how dope is Ivan that he redefined himself like that, right? And that's how I know, like, you have to keep growing, man. You have to keep growing. You can't always be like, you have to know who I am. You have to. They don't have to know anything, And I think that the way
you have to know who you are.
The way a lot of these older cats are going about this, let me stay relevant in the scene thing, is all wrong. It's all wrong. Introduce yourself. Introduce what you do. Introduce what you're doing now. And I think we owe them that platform, right?
Yeah.
And I think there are some. I honestly think these humongous events can make that sacrifice for a lot of these older cats that like, hey, this is what I do now, right? I might not have the dopest, craziest moves, but hey, this is what I do. How many photographers are there? How many painters are there in our scene that we don't even know? Why are we not creating that environment? And man, I did this one interview a while back where I got so much slack for it. So that's why I hate doing interviews, because you guys trap me. But I said from my heart like I was like, and I came off as like I was very anti new school or anti what's happening now. And it's not that. It's just that I value culture and I value art so
what did
much.
you say?
I'm a little confused, to be honest.
Yeah, what did you say?
No, it's just this was a long time ago, man.
So say it.
This was in Poland.
I know what you're talking about.
So yeah,
So say it.
So say, I just said it. It was the one in
No,
Poland.
like what was it that was controversial?
No, it was just basically I said that a lot of people that, but now they're gonna take it as like if I say it now, like they're thinking that. No, I said
quotations.
I said back in the day I was like, there's a lot of people that are on top that don't have any style, that that they have no idea what they're doing, and it's just we need to stop valuing those people, right?
What's wrong with that?
My message changed. My message changed a lot because I started valuing. It's
because he's trying to judge.
Yeah.
I'm trying to run.
Judging gig.
I'm trying to run for mayor, and I don't want to get hashtag me too'd by someone. But no, but I feel that now it's just that I said that as a guy that was in the scene trying to compete still. But now I'm saying it as a guy who values art on another level.
Yeah.
And I value what we do. And I think if the people that are calling the shots now are people that are really looking for financial gain, then we have to have a good balance of real true artists trying to preserve what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And it's just like there's always going to be promoters that are very exploitative, but I think there's always some people that are trying to do some good stuff, and I've had some great experiences artistically, Cross One asked me to do poetry at a freestyle session. Yeah. He stopped the entire jam so I could do 30 minutes of poetry, so I could sell my book. And I hear people talking about him. You're like, yo, like, that's dope. Even Romeo at BBOY City, like, he let me do a set of poetry. Stop a big old jam, let's hear some poetry, because this is what we need to be hearing. And to me, man, and you know what? A lot of young guys, a lot of people. It's so funny because at freestyle session, I noticed it. Little less than Texas, everyone supported, but a freestyle session, people that I know, that I've known for years, when Cross said that, like, they left the room. These are my people, my friends, and I'm just like, yo, you're supposed to be like mad hip hop, but when it's time to like truly support hip hop, it's just like, are we really supporting it, like in that way? So I think my message has changed a lot, because I think we have to have some sort of artistic balance to what we're doing. Yeah. And as big as we're going with spectacle-wise, I think we have to go as equally as big culture-wise. Yeah. And I think we have all the pieces to do that.
Well, I think your controversial comments, or I'm not trying to circle back to, but there's some merit to it. There's some truth. But I've asked myself, like, when you hear people say no style or somebody has style, and people try to categorize style, like, I think you kind of shoot yourself when you try and categorize and measure style. Like, there's no way of saying it, but I think, or no way of measuring it. Yeah. But whenever people talk about no style, I think what that means is you're saying that person has a generic style. It's like a homogeneous mixture, and like a generic, something that's not distinguishable from other people. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the, me growing up, and that's what I was taught first from the get-go. You guys told me that's the first thing that you prioritize, Jeremy, is originality. You have to dance like Jeremy. And then, of course, foundation, form, all these things are important. Being well-rounded is important. And when I talk to everybody, and when you hear from everybody, that's always the first thing that's supposed to be prioritized. And I think a lot of people's frustrations come from when these competitions, it seems like originality is not the first thing that's prioritized. But that's the first thing we're teaching our students. And
but there's always great examples of that, though. I think there's always great examples of people who, like, really, I don't think I've ever seen a jam where, like, there's at least one person that's representing for us,
Yeah.
right? I use Nagin as an example, man. I love watching that guy dance, man. It's just like, I think this guy goes in and just feels what it is. I think if you give him a horrible song, you kill him. And I think, and just, I guess what is your definition of style? It's like, man, if you give me a horrible song, you kill me. Because I think a
Like
person that values music so much in that way, you know what I mean? Like something like music, it should be huge. But if you're gonna do the same, no matter what song is on, no matter like what it is, you know what I mean? Like, I think there has to be some kind of brushstroke to your dance, because there's some things that are made by machines that are so perfect.
Yeah.
But I think there should be some kind of brushstrokes of like you in everything that you do, you know. And I think that's how it is. And I think there should be some kind of thesis, man. Thesis will do some like really hard dynamic things, and then he'll do some like funny stuff where you're just like, why'd you do that? But it's him, you know what I mean? And he chose to do that, and he's competing against these guys that are very dynamic also, but he's like, no, I'm gonna do this, you know, I'm gonna do this because I'm gonna let you know that this is who I am. And you have to respect that.
He's vibing.
You have to respect that.
And I think that, you know, there's a lot of controversy, you know, when people say, oh, these guys aren't B-boys. And I'm not talking about thesis. I'm not talking about Nagin. I'm just talking about in general. There's a lot of controversy when people say, well, he's not a B-boy because he doesn't do this. Man, let them do what they do.
Yeah.
They're vibing. You know, if you feel that way, that's cool. You know, the world doesn't have to know. Just let them be them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what it boils down to is just like, man, if you feel a certain thing, like, and you want to do this, do it by all means, you know. But
I do challenge. I challenge everybody to get away from that script that they're running, though. You know,
Yeah.
I challenge everybody. I mean, like, do more top rock. Like, bro, like dance more in the big competition.
Some people
like,
shouldn't do.
No, but
that,
that's when are you gonna learn how to dance if it's not in that moment? You know what I mean? If you, as a judge taking numbers away from everything, as a judge of perspective, artistic perspective, if I see someone who's vibing out, having the time of their life, and still being clean and coming through, I'm gonna lean that way. I'm gonna lean that way because this guy right here is doing what we're all supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I don't care if he's not doing the biggest moves in the world, but if he is dope enough to equal whoever he's competing against, but he's really feeling it, and he's making me smile and making me bob my head a little bit, I'm going with him every time.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's no formula that can tell you that. I don't think there's no number equation that can give you like, hey, how did you judge this guy on a feeling?
Yeah. Right before Silverback, I taught a workshop at Temple University, and one of the questions, it's funny, one of the questions that somebody asked me was like, do I think that there's a formula to win? And I said no. I said, you know, people are gonna have good days and they're gonna have bad days. It's whoever's feeling it the most.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases too, like, not to knock anyone's hustle, because everyone's great at what they do, in essence, right? Everyone's great at what they do, but you know, some people just have that, just like everything's going right for them that day.
Yeah.
The bracket, the judging,
Yes.
the music. I mean, everything.
Yes.
It's like literally.
I've been on
going right for
both
them.
ends of that.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah.
You know.
When
And,
you smile at your bracket.
man,
Yes.
there's no formula. Just be good. Just be good enough to be good.
Yeah.
And make it obvious. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and it's. I think at the end of the day, it's art, man. It's art. I don't. You know. To me, it's art. And this thing saved me. It gave me a ton of opportunities. It educated me. It allowed me to do what I'm doing now. So I can't even be mad at it. You know what I mean? I can't be mad at it. I can be a little bitter about certain things, but at the end of the day, what am I doing? Am I going to be complaining, you know what I mean? Or am I going to actually do stuff? And you know, just to go back to my book, I didn't know what to read when I was young. You know, I was a brown kid, so they told me, oh, read House on Mango Street. They told me that like 10 times. You know, and I was like, you know what, man? It'll be dope. It'll be dope if one day some kid goes up to a teacher and like, yo, what do I read? Like, oh, check out this book by Marlon Lizama.
Let's show those books
That's
one more
dope.
time. I know we showed like 2 of them, but talk about those.
So
Jeremy.
so that's my book. That's Q the Writer, Cheers to the Notion of Love, Hate, God, and Revolution, because I love them long titles. And then the other ones are anthologies, and they are called They Say. And these are our student anthologies, and this is all our student work, and they're dope. I mean, like, these kids are dope. We go through over 2,000 poems every year just to come up with the best 70 poems. I want to point this out. This They Say book right here is the cover. If you're a hip hop fan, was created by Justin Bua.
Sick.
So if you don't know who Justin Bua is, he created the DJ, which is the world famous poster of all time.
Pianist.
But yes, the pianist. I actually got him to come to Houston.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he came, and I took him to my classes.
Yeah.
And then I had him do a storytelling series. And then when I'm driving him to the airport, I'm like, will you do a cover to our book? And that was my whole plan. And he said yes. And that was so hip hop.
That's so sick.
That was so hip hop of him, because like he was there in the beginning.
Yeah.
And for him to be like,
Like
yo,
if you would ask him to do the cover before all that happened.
oh, it was
no.
$10,000.
Yeah,
It would
but
be
he
10.
saw the
but
Wait,
like,
Wait a minute. He's actually probably going to be doing a piece for my house pretty soon.
Yes.
10,000.
And yes, I mean, like, literally, for him to, first of all, I had to prove that and I remember when I told him that I was a b-boy, and then he goes, no, you're not.
Is he from the Rio Grande Valley?
Wait, I thought Justin Bieber was Puerto Rican. He was going, Mexican.
Is he from the valley?
He
Check-
literally goes, because I touched him on the phone. and then I was like, yo, I'm like, listen, my
I
name
don't
is,
think Justin Bieber from New York said that.
I'm like,
He said, yo, what be?
you guys are killing this beautiful story. I called him, and I was like, listen, I wanna bring you out to Houston. And then he goes, yeah. Gave me his price. I'm like, oh no, I don't have that. I don't have that money. I'm a b-boy from Houston. I'm in this crew called HaviKORO. He goes, no, you're not. And I was like, I promise. And then he goes, nah. He goes, I know b-boys. He goes, you ain't no b-boy. And I'm like, yo, listen. Who are your peoples? Who are your peoples? And he told me about his
All your
peoples.
nemesis, he goes, all your enemies.
And he goes, yo, I know everybody. I know Kid David. I know Mike Murder. I know, and I'm like, yo, those are my people. Ask about me. He goes, I'll call you back. He called me back. He goes, yo, you're not lying. You know, you're good. And he came to, like, it doesn't get more hip hop than that, man. It doesn't get more hip hop. Like the whole each one teach one thing, man. Like there's a romantic aspect of what we do. If you really think about what we do, where we're like, hey, come to this other country. Yeah. We're gonna fly you down.
You can stay on my couch.
You can stay on my couch, and you're gonna meet all these people. You have no idea who they are.
I'll show you a good
and
time.
And you get like, how much trust is there in hip hop, right? That like, yo, you're not gonna murder me. you're gonna be good to me. Like how beautiful is that we trust each other so much.
You meet my dog. You come meet my dog.
Yes, and it's just but it's almost like an accountability for each other. Like if somebody comes here, hey, I'm coming down. Like it's almost like, okay, I can't put you up, but I'll find someone that can. Mm-hmm. Right? Because we're accountable for we're responsible for each
Christian,
other.
who came down
Yes,
here,
man.
Germany.
And it's just
shout out to our boy No Index.
That's what's up.
He's probably tuning in right now.
And that's the coolest part. I think that's the coolest part about our culture is that there's accountability to each other. There is a brotherhood that is out there, that there's a respectful thing that, like, you know, I bug out when I see the B girls flying by themselves all over the world, and it's like they feel safe because they should, because this is a culture and we are accountable for each other.
So go ahead and tell the people your address, so whenever they come into Houston from all around the world.
Oh yeah, man. So come straight to Break Free and wait for me, and tell Moy and Jeremy to wait.
The address to Break Free is 9191 Winkler Drive, Houston, Texas.
That's right, baby.
77017.
We talked that talk.
D, you're just gonna have to wait for us until we get here.
I might be late. Baby. I might be late coming to get you, but I got you.
We'll start that queue for you, all right?
And we're going to Mexican. We're going to Arandas, right?
Yo, so all right, last thing. been a beautiful conversation, but I just want to wrap it up. And last question is, if you had one message for the youth, if there's an aspiring artist out there, because I think
For everyone.
Yeah, for everyone.
For
You're
everyone.
but you're such an amazing example of an artist who does what he does, makes a living off it, loves what he does. But a message for any aspiring artist, for the youth out there,
Yeah.
for the future.
And this is something I learned late. I mean, I guess we practiced it early, but we didn't know we were practicing it. But to truly appreciate your art, you have to sacrifice for it. You know, and that means like to give an actual attempt, like an actual 100% full-hearted attempt at whatever you're trying, right? I love Alan Watts. Alan Watts said, if you play a guitar for 10 years, you're going to be able to play music. Now you put that into dancer terms. If you have been dancing for 10 years, and I've seen a lot of people that have been dancing for 10 years, are you making music? Are you creating, right?
Mhm.
Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Like, find ways on how to create. Because there's people that practice 1,000 hours a day, but they just don't get better.
Yeah.
Find that way that works for you, and learn how to be inspired by everything, man. I find myself taking in lectures because I am going to get something out of it. And if you can start doing that at an early age, you are going to be unstoppable.
Agree.
Unstoppable, because it's just, these lessons were not given to us because there was nobody to give them to us. But now that I know that if I would have just been able to take in a little more inspiration, or be a little bit more open-minded and search, and like me actually getting up to going to search for that inspiration and sacrifice for it. You know, the way we sacrifice for sneakers, the way we sacrifice for things that as consumers we love, the way we sacrifice to save up for a car. If we were to sacrifice for our art in that same way, dang, you are going to be on another level. You are going to be on another level, and you can be really good at what you do, but be a shitty artist. You can be really good at what you do and have no integrity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to me that speaks volumes for an artist, is your integrity, what you stand for, how you represent it, how you represent yourself, and how you're able to communicate with your art. And at the end of the day, man, it's just like, be an artist. Be an artist, man. Be an artist about what you do, man. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. The journey's dope. The journey's dope. I go to 5-star hotels now, but man, when we used to sleep on couches, that was dope. You know, like that was dope. But thank
man,
you.
Beautiful.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
man.
coming
Thank you,
on,
guys.
man.
Share the website where they can purchase your book.
Yes, man. Listen, go to iconoclastartists.org to support my creative writing program. This year we have an all Spanish anthology coming out with students that have been here 2 years or less. How dope is that, man? We're teaching poetry in Spanish now. We have another anthology coming out. My show, January 5th.
Where at?
Match Theater, my
Houston,
Spanglish
Texas.
hip hop story, Houston, Texas. It's gonna go all over after that, but the next show is gonna be January 5th in Houston at Match Theater.
Fresh.
Come out, man! I promise you. You've never seen nothing like it. I'll give you your money back. If you think it's whack, I'll give you your money back. Like, that's how dope I think the show is. So please,
What's your Instagram?
come out.
Tell me.
My Instagram is Marley the Creative. And yeah, man, my Twitter is Marley HK, but I'm really bad at Twitter. But Instagram is always good, Marley the Creative, and thank you guys for having me.
we
Yo,
love it.
thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
Love you guys, man.
Signing off.
We appreciate you guys watching.
Peace.
Every Tuesday, 6 p.m.
Break Free
Central
Worldwide.
Time. Break Free Worldwide live podcast. Always having special guests on board, sharing some knowledge, life
Yes.
experiences. Make sure to tune in, subscribe.